Thursday afternoon. Hello there. Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. Don't forget that this is The Pulse. We are free to air. You can catch us live with DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up this afternoon on The Pulse, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin directs the table office to correct the Hansard which omitted the minorities walkout in the chamber before the adoption of the Finance Committee's report on the subject of the controversial electronic transactions levy.
I directed that the correct thing be done, and the correct position for it is before the question was put and motion agreed to.
And we take you to Parliament shortly for updates on that. Ghana's prison facilities overwhelmed by close to 4,000 inmates, raising concerns about implication for national security and also the justice delivery system here in Ghana.
We have a total inmate population of 13,883 as against an authorized capacity of 9,945.
And a little later as well, President Akufo-Addo reiterates commitment to upgrading technical and vocational schools across the country. Today on The Pulse, we explore the ways to improve technical and vocational training here in Ghana. This is The Pulse. Don't forget that I am Blessed Suga. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. And this afternoon, we are streaming live on our YouTube channel and also on all of our social media handles. It's at JoyNews on TV. Don't forget to use the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Suga. Stay for details. Well, this afternoon, we're starting right from Parliament. The Speaker, Alban Bagbin, has actually directed the table office to indicate officially on the records that the question for the approval of the adoption of the Finance Committee's report on the E-levy during last Tuesday's proceedings was actually put after the minority staged a walkout. This follows the omission of the minority's boycott from Tuesday's votes and proceedings. The minority argues this omission was a deliberate attempt by the clerk's office to conceal evidence that may be used by the minority to challenge the approval of the levy after an earlier ruling by the Supreme Court. Now on the floor of the House today, Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Apenyomakin insisted that the filing out of the minority did not affect the required numbers to take a decision, arguing that some of the NDC MPs were still in the chamber at the time the question was put on the floor of the House. But the Speaker ruled that the question was put after the walkout. Here are excerpts of what transpired in Parliament today.
Transfer Levy Bill 2021 accordingly read a second time. Just in between the 7 and 8, that's where our walkout needs to be recorded. Without the state at which we stage our walkout, and it has to be captured appropriately.
Actually, it should come before question put and motion agreed to. Was the walkout happened before I put the question and the motion agreed to? That is the appropriate position for it. So table office kindly correct the records accordingly. Majority Deputy Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, just a little clarification. My respected colleague, the Minority Chief Whip, indicated that they walked out at a certain time. And you clarified the position by saying that the walkout was actually announced before the vote, the question was put. That is correct. What I just wanted to put on record was that although the announcement was made by the minority leader on the walkout, however, the question was put at the time they were proceeding out. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, that's and Mr. Speaker, we don't need to split heads on this matter. Mr. Speaker, we don't need to split heads on this matter. If since they are at the Supreme Court and they say they will take the audio visuals and the videos and everything, when they get there, the Supreme Court will watch.
Yes.
You know, whatever. I won't fight you over this. But I am saying that at the time the question was put, some of you were still in the chamber walking out. You were moving out. You were carrying your books. You were packing. But I'm not contesting. It doesn't change the issue. It does not. The question, the issue is that at the time you announced the walkout, the question had not been put. And Mr. Speaker is right. However, your walking out was not instantaneous. It took time. So eventually when the question was put, some of you were still in the chamber.
Many of them.
If you are challenging me, the video will speak for me. Mr. Speaker, that is all.
Is the essence of this submission. You are a leader. You heard me expatiate on these issues. As to when you talk about attendance. So why are you raising this? I actually put the question after the walkout. That is different from attendance to Parliament. They walked out. I am clear in my mind what I do in this house. And I can defend myself anywhere, even in the International Court of Justice. The fact that they walked out did not erase the fact that they were present in Parliament. Just the same way, when you walked out and we came here and continued, the issue of quorum was raised by this side, and that is quorum to conduct business, which needed 92. And that's why I made them count. We should have got 92 and got more than that, 137. And so that press conference that you held and said we do not form a quorum was said in error of the law. The same thing that you are trying to, don't repeat it. Be guided by this. It's not Supreme Court ruling. That is the ruling of the Speaker, and we go by it. Page 10 are directed that the correct thing be done, and the correct position for it is before the question was put and motion agreed to.
Well, except of what transpired in Parliament now, let's head there and hear from Kwesi Parker-Wilson, who is our parliamentary correspondent. Parker, what else transpired on the floor today?
And Blessed, let me just add that the comment by the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Fayemaken, is true that at the time the minority members were filing out, or at the time the question was put actually, some minority members were still in the chamber. In fact, I could count a little over 20 of them at the time in the chamber when the Speaker put the question. But it's been recorded that the question was put after they walked out. But the point again has been made that because the exit of Parliament is very small, the minority members were still taking their time to file out, and that is the position by the NPP caucus, indicating that it doesn't defeat the fact that we still had some of the members in the chamber, but it's an official record that the question was put after the minority has officially announced their decision to stage a walkout, and that has been captured on the record. Now, this morning, Blessed, the minority has been very emotional this morning. In fact, the clerk of Parliament, Sirikoblensia, has been under intense fire by the minority. In fact, they've hit very hard on him. Now, three things happened on the day. That is the last Tuesday during the consideration of the E-levy. One, the minority staged a walkout. The votes and proceedings did not capture that. That's number one. Two, there were about 8 NDC MPs in the chamber. Again, the votes and proceedings indicated that they were absent. And this has infuriated the minority. According to the minority, these are very essential information that should not be omitted from the votes and proceedings. And so this morning, the minority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, went hard at the clerk's office, accusing them of being partisan or perhaps being compromised by his colleagues on the other side. That is the majority side. In fact, he said that the omission of the fact that the minority MPs walked out and again marking as absent MPs who were actually in the chamber is an indication that they are tampering with vital evidence which could be used in court if the minority is successful in challenging the approval of the E-levy. But I must say that the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Feyomakin, did also not take it lightly on his colleague on the minority side. He indicated that the clerk of Parliament has been very neutral, very independent, very fair, and so it is highly unacceptable if you accuse him of being biased or perhaps being compromised. That is not the way to go. Okay. As leadership, they need to protect the clerk because the clerk does not have a voice in the chamber. And so if you accuse him, he cannot mount a defense. Even though he was there, when you accuse him, he cannot mount a defense because per the Parliament standing orders, they cannot speak on the floor of the House. Okay. They are not ministers, they are not MPs, so they have no right to speak on the floor. All they have to do is to record proceedings. But the speaker, listening to the debate, in fact, the defense minister also was not happy with the uncharitable words, the unprinted words used by the minority chief whip, and asked them to remain calm and ensure that at least the votes and proceedings are corrected. And the third one was about the fact that in yesterday's order paper, there was no item 4. Item 4 essentially is about correction of votes and proceedings, and that was also an omission. Minority didn't understand why it has to be so. So in all of the controversy and the heated debate between the two sides, and I must say that the MPs who are accused of being absent, their constituents have been accusing them of probably taking bribes, reason they absented themselves from Parliament during a crucial consideration of the E-levy. Right. So they were unhappy. In fact, they lamented. Some of them said that they were traumatized and scandalized by what has happened.
But Parker, do we know if
the speaker,
anything has changed
at the end of the day, listening to all the concerns on the floor of the House, ruled. Hello, Blessed.
I'm asking if anything has changed yet in terms of the official records.
Yes, so the speaker directed the table office and of course the clerk to ensure that the official records are rectified. They should ensure that all the 8 MPs who allegedly or have been alleged to have been absent were present. He indicated that he saw them. In fact, Cletus Avaka sits directly opposite the speaker. And so, assuming the speaker is not seeing anybody in the chamber, because he's looking straight, he's going to see Cletus Avaka. So, it is incorrect for anybody to suggest that Cletus Avaka was not in the chamber. He was in the chamber, and the record must rectify that he was in the chamber in addition to the other 8 MPs. But there was an appeal from the Tamale North Member of Parliament, Al-Hassan Suhini, indicating that the apology on the floor of the House is not enough. The Public Affairs Directorate of Parliament should be caused to issue a public statement and render an apology with the photographs of the 8 MPs so that they can clear them, because there's this allegation all across social media and of course within the media space that the MPs were compromised. Well, the speaker did not make any pronouncement on that. Maybe perhaps he might direct the public affairs later in the day to do the needful or not, but I must say that the speaker did not make any pronouncement on that with regards to the issue of the public statement. There was another issue about the chieftaincy minister
Yes, I want you to stay with me because we also know that the chairperson of the Roads and Transport Committee, Kwame Gavins Abuja as well, has been making some claims, and also the chairperson of that committee, Kennedy Osei-Nyako, is also fighting off claims that President Akufo-Addo misled the nation during the delivery of the State of the Nation address. We know that President Akufo-Addo said his administration has constructed over 10,000 kilometers of roads since 2017, a claim that the ranking member on the Roads Committee, Kwame Gavins Abuja, actually describes as false. We can just watch what unfolded when the president delivered the address yesterday.
And if you check from the data, they say it's critical roads 2,167, cocoa roads 4,853, town roads 567, Asphaltic Overlay 1,500, Sino Hydro 441, and if you add all of them, it's about 11,111 kilometers. That is information provided to you in May 2021. That is the last State of the Nation, last state meet the press of the Minister of Roads and Highways. Is that not the case? And out of that, in an answer to the question filed by a member on the floor, the road minister, I think January or February this year, provided data on 4,200 kilometers of road he claimed have been completed. On that list, my brothers and sisters, are only 68.5 kilometers of new roads. The rest are pothole patching, sealing, graveling, and re-graveling. As we speak, the presidency or the Ministry of Roads and Highways does not have the data to back the 10,800 kilometers of roads that the president mentioned. The truth is that it was probably a slip of tongue. Instead of them coming to the people and say, look, that is not what we meant. Actually, what we meant by 10,800 kilometers are roads under contract. My chairman, the respected chairman, came and told you that he's got data on 6,000 kilometers of roads completed. How do you call it? By the Cocoa Board alone. My brothers, Cocoa Board, as of the time the minister was reporting in his, meet the press, had contracts worth, the contract to the tune of 15 billion, about 4,800 kilometers. So by May last year, the minister says there are 4,800 kilometers of project under construction. However, in April, or February, March 2022, the government has gone to complete 6,000 kilometers out of the 5,000. Does it make sense to you? I'm happy that some of your organizations have fact-checked them. Ignore my chairman totally. He hasn't got any data. In fact, if anybody has got data on completed projects in this country, who do you think will have that data? The road minister. The road minister doesn't have that data. So ignore what my chairman is saying. In fact, he went and took a portion of the meet the press, which suggested that there are 4,800 kilometers of road under construction and by the Cocoa Road, which is a fact. But we are talking about the emphatic statement. We have completed 10,800 kilometers. My brothers and sisters, I'm grateful to you. Some of you have already disregarded the president's comment. It's a slip. He should come out and say that what I meant was that we are talking about reshaping and everything which are that. But in any case, if you do reshaping and other things, is that an achievement? Is that completed? It is not.
But the chairperson of the Roads and Transport Committee, Kennedy Osei-Nyako, insists the statement by the president is accurate.
As a chairman of the committee, I have the right and the privilege to respond to the comment or the allegation being made or put out by my colleague. First of all, this country has a total road network of 78,402. That is what the MPP government inherited. That is the total road network. Out of this total road network, we have only about, during the time we took over, only 33% of this 78 was paved road, or let's say good road. What it means is that the rest, almost about 67% of it are all bad roads. The Ministry of Roads and Highways have categorized its roads or its programs or its activities in several categories. So we have roads that are being undertaken by feeder roads, that also undertaken by urban roads, and that undertaken by highways, Ghana Highways Authority. Among all these three categories is feeder road, which has the largest network, almost about 48,000 kilometers. The president's statement or figure of 10,875 that was put out is an accurate figure.
Well, so Parker Wilson is still with us. We understand that the Roads and Highways Ministry has also released a statement that seeks to justify the claims made by the president on his administration actually constructing some 10,000 kilometers of roads since 2017. So, Parker, you have actually read through the statement. What do we know about the content, and what are the justifications that we're learning from this statement that's coming through from the Roads Ministry? Parker, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the details that we're getting from this statement from the Roads and Highways Ministry.
The statement from the Roads and Highways Ministry, Blessed.
Parker, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the details. The details. Go ahead. The details of the statement that you have with you.
Right. So there's a statement from the Ministry of Roads and Highways indicating that, of course, some 10,875 kilometers of new roads have been constructed. And if you look at the statement, they have pegged the figures at just the amount, the number of kilometers the president talked about. They have talked about paved roads, unpaved roads, and also the good roads. Now, let me just give you what the statement says briefly here. So, if you look at the statement, say between 2017 and 2021, trunk and feeder and urban roads. If you look at the urban roads, we've constructed about 14.583 kilometers. The good roads are about 39%. The fair roads are about 32%. And then they also have the paved roads. So the ministry is quite clear that if you look at what they have here today, they have constructed about 10,000 kilometers of roads. So it will be misleading for anybody to suggest that the president misled the state by saying that government has constructed about 10,000 kilometers of road since they assumed power in 2017.
Right then, Parker, but finally, do we know if the minority is taking any steps to hold the minister before the House to answer questions on the official records? I mean, talking about the roads, the actual number of roads that have been constructed.
Well, right. So the minority has just challenged the Cocoa Board to show proof of the 6,000 roads that the government is claiming, or the chairman of the committee is claiming, that have been constructed within a period of about 6-7 months. And so it is only that that he would accept the fact that indeed 10,000 roads have been completed. So in spite of this statement, in spite of the comments of the president and that of the chairman of the roads committee, he is not agreeing to the fact that the NPP administration has constructed about 10,000 roads since 2017.
Parker Wilson, grateful that you've been able to give us some updates. Fortunately, there are some developments that we're learning of. We'll bring that to you shortly. But first off, let's do this. Ghana's prisons facilities are actually overwhelmed by close to 4,000 inmates. That's raising concerns about the implications for national security and also the country's judicial and justice delivery system. A total of some 13,883 persons are currently behind bars, far exceeding the capacity of Ghana's prison service to actually hold 9,945. Civil society group Crime Check Foundation says a speedy passage of the non-custodial sentencing bill will solve this challenge. There's more in the following report.
Ghana's justice delivery system is grappling with a myriad of challenges. Key amongst them is the unavailability of an alternative sentencing regime for petty offenders. Civil society group Crime Check Foundation says its initial findings reveal that most of these petty offenders are vagrants.
Basically, these are laws that are targeted at the homeless and other poor persons who tend to suffer disproportionately from the implementation of these laws. When justice institutions and the rest of us are guided by the ruling against vagrancy laws, it will ensure that poor and voiceless citizens are protected by institutions in social protection in order to reduce human rights abuses, fines, and imprisonments of offenders. For now, prosecution of petty offenders is guided by the existing laws, which make it difficult for poor offenders to avoid prison.
There are concerns that the continuous detention of these petty offenders is contributing to congestion in the prisons. CSP Karijachem is Chief Public Relations Officer for the Ghana Prisons Service.
That we have a total inmate population of 13,883 as against an authorized capacity of 9,945. And so if you do the arithmetics, you will come to close to over 4,000 inmates in excess. A number of measures have been put in place to reduce the congestion. You may be well aware of the intervention by the Church of Pentecost that has come on board to provide us with five camp prisons. The Justice for All program, which first of all seeks to give justice to whom justice has been denied, because it's said that justice delayed is justice or denied, isn't it? I think that a number of things has been done, but one key thing for me, I believe will do the trick for us as a nation, will be the introduction of non-custodial sentences. Because we could see that the sentencing policy has a very limited scope, and therefore our judges are constrained to use those few options. And so if other options are introduced, as far as in terms of non-custodial sentences, depending on the magnitude and nature of some offenses, some people may not have to do time in prison. And I think that this will go a long way in reducing the congestion in our prisons.
Executive Director for Crime Check Foundation, Ibrahim Opon-Kwarteng, says a speedy passage of the non-custodial sentencing law will address this situation.
Crime Check Foundation has been doing a lot of advocacy on decongestion of our prisons. Our prisons are full. Most of the structures are colonial structures that do not befit the status of prisons, and then this affects the reformation and rehabilitation of prisons, of prisoners that the Ghana Prison Service has been advocating. Today's program is important because we understand and we know that most vagrants are being sent into jail. They usually find these are poor people, homeless people on the streets, and because by dint of their appearance, when the police organizes soups, they usually are affected. They are sent to prison without the intervention of lawyers. They don't have, because they are poor, they don't have access to lawyers, and this is increasing the prison population. So you feel jailing people who still plenty?
Well, it's time now for us to have some conversation on this and explore ways of decongesting prison facilities. Fortunate to have Ibrahim Opon-Kwarteng, who's the Executive Director for Crime Check Foundation, joining us. Richard Komodo is also a security consultant. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So we'll be exploring the security implications shortly, but Crime Check Foundation says it's been carrying out some monitoring activities. Let me start off with you, Ibrahim. What's your findings after the tour of all the prison facilities across the country? How bad is the situation as we speak?
It's bad as bad, and then this is no news because it is something that is in the public domain about the congestion in our country's prisons. We should know that out of the 46 prisons that we have, I think successive governments have added just 4, and most of these structures that we have, were not meant as prisons. They were colonial structures. Some of them slaves being kept in there, and so on and so forth. If we claim to be a beacon of democracy and a champion of human rights, then we should be doing better, adding on to prisons, ensuring the reformation and the protection of prisoners. Again, you also realize that most of vagrants are being in prison. These are poor people, these are homeless people, people who usually find themselves at the wrong side of the law. We are all aware of police suits. Usually, these people are targeted. Of, usually the way they look and so on and so forth. Of course, some of them have committed crimes. Some of them, and we should situate it in the context of poverty, because some of them may have stolen. We are not condoning a crime that someone goes to steal a plastic chair in a banana. These are the people who continue to make our prisons congested. So our monitoring has revealed lots of problems, and then we believe that. Because of the loopholes, gaping loopholes in our criminal justice system, most of these people who are in prisons are we are all aware again that if it is about someone who has the wherewithal, they are able usually to use technicalities in court to go scot-free. But in the absence of non-custodial sentencing law, and of course, the poor people will be targeted all the time. This is a concern that we are talking about doing a lot of advocacy for the passage of the
So are you suggesting that the problem has got to do with our laws, and how do we change that? What's the solution to that?
Our laws, there are no laws that ought to be amended. But of concern to us as an organization is the passage of the non-custodial sentencing bill into law, because it doesn't make sense. For instance, that someone goes to steal a banana, you ask the person to pay a fine of 300 Ghana cedis or 400 Ghana cedis. The person is unable to pay. So the person is given a 5-year jail term, and then we have to use our taxpayers' money to feed the person. So just look at the variables. 200, 300 Ghana cedis, the person could not pay, and then you're going to feed him for 3 full years. Just look at the cost implications. So it's important. The bill has been in Parliament for about 7 years. I know civil society is doing a lot to ensure its passage. Some of us have had audience with the Minister of Justice. Assurances have been given, but then it has been the trend with all justice sector ministers. At the end of the day, nothing comes out of it. So we hope that the media will also be at the forefront, championing the need for the passage of the non-custodial sentencing bill into law. Right. With the non-custodial sentencing law, let me add this: the non-custodial sentencing law, these people who are making our prisons could be desalting gutters, could be sweeping the streets, could be planting for food and jobs. So what is the sense in keeping them in prison?
Are you suggesting that the poor is being targeted when it comes to criminal law?
Absolutely, because most of them do not have the services of lawyers. If you have a problem, I'm sure, looking at your suit and tie, you obviously would have a lawyer because you may have the connections, you could afford. But what about the many people out there on the streets who do not have access? So this is a major concern.
With the call that you're making, are you not condoning crime? I guess that's also another thing to look at.
Not at all. We've made our position very clear. No one is condoning crime. That is why we have petty offenders. It is within the law. That is why they are usually not given outrageous sentences, but some sentences to deter them from committing crime. What we are saying is that is prison the only alternative? No. A recent ruling by the African Court on Human and People's Rights, is clear that vagrants should not be imprisoned. It is against the law. There should be alternatives to imprisonment. Every nation that develops, in Europe, in the Americas, petty offenders are not sent to jail. They are given community service to do. So what is preventing us, especially a poor country, a developing country, let me put it that way. And that needs the services of these offenders to develop the country. There's a lot. Look at the stench in the crowd. Look at the filth. Don't you agree with me that they could do something in the development of the country?
I guess we need some solutions. Ibrahim, just hold on for us. Also joining us is Richard Komado, a security consultant on this. Richard, you've been monitoring the situation as well. Just about a little over, close to 4,000. Let's make it approximately 4,000 persons. These are the numbers that the Ghana Prison Service is unable to contain at this moment. That has implications for national security, isn't it? Richard, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the implications for our national security and what we could do to decongest prisons. It appears that we're having some challenges with Richard. We'll get back to him. But Ibrahim, for you, as we wrap up on this conversation, what will be the way forward and how soon do we need an intervention from the authorities?
We need it very soon because our prisons are hugely congested. It affects our designation as a champion of human rights, as a beacon of democracy. So we will continue with the advocacy efforts to ensure that the bill is passed into law.
I'm grateful, Ibrahim Opong Kwarting. Thank you for sharing your perspective with us. There's a need for us to talk about vocational education in Ghana. We'll do all of that right after this break. Stay with us here on The Pulse. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now let's talk about technical and vocational education here in Ghana. Delivering his State of the Nation address Wednesday, President Akufo-Addo actually indicated and reiterated his commitment to upgrading technical and vocational schools across the country. According to the President, 34 existing vocational and technical institutes have been refurbished to equip students with the requisite skills they need to thrive in a modern economy.
The difficulties of the time notwithstanding, we intend to continue to grow this economy and bring prosperity. That will only happen when we continue to invest in the future. Our children will continue to be educated and be equipped to run a modern and digitalized economy. The free SHS and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled workforce. The computerized school placement system is currently ongoing, and the latest batch of JHS students will soon embark on their free SHS and free TVET education. The TVET institutions are being upgraded and equipped to enable them train the increased numbers of children that we want to be attracted to that sector to meet the modern needs of our economy. This year, I'll be commissioning some of the 34 refurbished National Vocational and Technical Institutes, NVTIs, across the country. The refurbishment comprises the construction, rehabilitation and equipment of laboratories, workshops, additional classrooms, hostels, and administrative offices. Within the next few months, the construction of 5 technical colleges will begin in various parts of the country. 3 technical institutes will be upgraded to tertiary status. The initial phase for the construction of 9 TVET campuses will commence next month in Busumtwe, Achimewisa, Boakon, Kenyase, Patuda, Dambai, Narabanga, Guabuliga, and Tolibri. These campuses will have academic facilities, workshops, laboratories, hostels, and staff accommodation, and provide access for training. Government is in the process of securing financing for the construction of 5 STEM universities in 5 new regions. That is Western North, Savannah, Northeast, Ahafo, and Uti regions.
Oh, so that's the president there. Today on The Pulse, we're putting a spotlight on STEM education. Fortunate to have now joining us via Zoom, Deputy Minister responsible for education in charge of technical and vocational education training, TVET, Gifty Chum Ampofo. In the studio as well, we have Dr. Bafo Ejebewa, Ghana's former ambassador to the United States. He happens to be a lecturer now at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in the United States of America. We'll be having a conversation with him shortly, but Honorable, let me welcome you to the program. So there we have it, the President indicating his resolve to uplift the face of TVET across the country. What specifically are we to expect in the coming days in that regard?
Thank you very much. My greetings to all our listeners and those watching us. President hits the hammer right at the head of the nail. All the whole world, countries who are doing very well so far as production is concerned are countries who are making TVET their priority. And talking about TVET, you can't talk about TVET without mentioning Germany, because Germany has provided a very wonderful model that many countries had imitated and we are still imitating. President in 2018 made a statement that to reduce poverty and to avoid or reduce youth unemployment, we need to place much emphasis on TVET. And because of that, President set up a transformation agenda for TVET that was chaired by Honorable Nanayo Asafo-Mamfu, who was the senior minister. And then, with that transformation agenda, we have three main things to do to make TVET accessible, to improve facilities at TVET centers, and also to get regulation to ensure that TVET is streamlined and TVET is standardized. So with this, we started looking for funding to expand our TVET facilities. And the first that we were successful was a facility of 139 million euros to expand, to facelift our 34 MBTIs, which the President spoke about. And for sake of time, President over-summarized the achievement that we have made under his own regime in TVET. Apart from 34 MVTIs, we also have 3 foundry and machinery centers, one at CSIR in Accra, at East Legon. We have one at Atomic Energy, and we have the third one at KNUST. All these together were the 34 MVTIs, and then the head office of the OICs have also been renovated, expanded, and facelifted. These facilities also have modern state-of-the-art TVET equipment, which are not just for teaching, but they're also for industrial use because they are industrial machines. In addition, we also have a bill that, by the grace of God, in 2020 we had, 2 bills that 2020 we had them into Act. That is Pre-Tertiary Act, that is Act 1049, and Education Regulators Act, that is Act 1023. The Education Regulation Act seems to address the anomalies in the TVET sectors. The TVET sectors, as of 2019, had many institutions under different ministries, as many as 19 in this country. And what was quite surprising was these institutes, even though government money is used to run these institutes, some of them did not have accreditation, and some of them, after they've gone through the training, full training program, the government institutions were even struggling to place them in areas of job and as well as salaries. So we realized that there were no standardization. And again, because all those 19 ministries, their core business wasn't teaching and learning, because of the budgetary allocations were also something that had to be discussed. And with that, with the Pre-Tertiary Act, that is Act 1049, we now have all skill development institutions under all various ministries, now under the Ministry of Education, to ensure that there is standardization. programs done wherever they are done. You all know that once you have the certificate, you had a training, at least you have a acceptable certificate and you have accreditation as well. And whoever sees that knows that because of the standardization you have in the country, it doesn't matter where the certificate is coming from. We know that once it's proficiency 1, wherever it's coming from is proficiency 1. 1 is 2, 1 is certificate. Whatever certificate you have, everybody knows that irrespective of where that certificate is being awarded, we know what it entails. In addition to this, we also have the Education Regulators Bill, where we had collapsed CODVET, which was Council for TVET, and also we had NAPTEX. We have collapsed the two into one body we call Council for TVET. So now we no more have CODVET, but we have CTVET. CTVET is to ensure that all TVET activities in the country, teaching and learning, together with those who are private persons practicing TVET, are very much regulated, standardized, and also developed curricula for all TVET institutions in collaboration with the industry. And to ensure that this is well done and appropriately done, we've also set up sector skill bodies. And these sector skills bodies are in close association with CTVET to ensure that they collectively develop the curricula that will be useful today and will be useful tomorrow, and then the future also be useful in here in the country and also useful elsewhere. Again, the CTVET has also performed what you call skilled gap analysis. My brother, you agree with me that in Ghana, if anyone puts up a very magnificent building, when you get to the finishing, the tile laying, the POPs and others, you know where we go in West Africa to look for men. Not to mention the issues, the challenges we're having with the local content at our oil field. So all these together, the CTVET is developing modern curricula to suit our country today and the future, and also to suit other countries to make our graduates very viable.
Honorable Gift Chuman Pofo, just hold on for us. We're fortunate to also have in studio with us Dr. Bafo Ejebewa, Ghana's former ambassador to the United States, also now doing a lot of academic activities as well. So he's with the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, USA. Thank you so much, Ambassador, and such a great time to be seeing you.
It's a pleasure to
I'm
be
just
here.
interested in finding out how life has been after your tour of duty, actually, in the US.
Well, I suppose it's been different, but at the same time sort of normal. Because the institution offered me this position of distinguished statesman in residence. And I'm using that opportunity to support the university in develop new initiatives that would benefit, in this particular case, my country first, and we intend to extend to the other West Africa.
So it's still an issue of national service. That's how we should put it.
You know, you have to always keep a certain strain of nationalism in your system.
Right. So why now focus on issues of vocational and technical training? How relevant is it to a developing nation such as Ghana?
Well, the fact of the matter is, developing nations are not in any kind of isolation. We are competing in the same world, on the same markets, in the same learning environment. So we have to keep up. And you see, where education and training do have a lot to do with our developmental effort, we cannot calmly decide that all that we can do is to wait for others to do something and then we pick it up. We have to be able to compete. And if in our situation and across sub-Saharan Africa, we can't even afford to play catch up. We actually have to leapfrog because the world keeps hopping by the day. So it is very crucial that we always keep an eye on what is it that we can do to improve our system.
Where did we miss the mark? I mean, the belief was that at the time of independence, we saw a great direction in terms of TVET, vocation and technical training. Where did we miss the point, and how do we need to get back on track?
I suppose it would be quite presumptuous on my part to actually nail down what went wrong.
Right.
But the thing is, if you recognize the fact that somebody like me went to Legon to do a degree in when was it? In 1962.
Right.
And the curriculum spread was such that you couldn't at that time even count on the new technological areas and such.
Right.
And then Legon also, by its very nature and its very setup and its orientation, I believe was originally set up basically to provide civil servants for the colonial administration. So the areas that call for technical expertise and such were not exactly highlighted. Maybe the highlighting was supposed to be at Science and Technology in Kumasi. Yeah. But we obviously have carried on what is it that was bequeathed to us. And I, in my view, believe that we just have not kept pace with the development of business and industry. And therefore, we have not been able to produce the kinds of graduates and such who ought to handle the business of the nation as the years rolled on.
So that's where the problem might have started from.
Yeah.
But now, looking at the reforms that we have and government's policy of putting things together, creating, for instance, the Council for Technical and Vocational Training, are these policy measures enough in addressing the challenges that we have, or perhaps there are more factors that we need to consider?
Well, I believe Tibet has been with us for quite a bit, and I believe they have been doing a very good job. But see, the whole thing runs around our concept of education and qualification. We seem to have believed all the time that holding a piece of paper that testifies to the fact that you've been to this institution, this is the curriculum you followed, and all that, and this is the final grade that you have. In itself, that's the job. But in my view, the certificate basically says you came to this school, you attended classes, you took exams, you got such a grade. And of course, congratulations. You are at a point where you ought to be able to do something. What the certificate doesn't say is that, one, with all that participation that you did, it only assures us that with all that time spent in school, the chances are that you can read. The chances are that you can write. The chances are that with a bit of hope, you can think.
Right.
But it doesn't guarantee that there is a certain factor of application.
Or perhaps skills.
Yeah. Because we have a lot of graduates with no employable skills. And the thing is, I, for one, I'm committed to developing the workforce of the future, for this country. Yeah. And I don't think without the application, we are going to solve, the problem. But I don't believe that you have to go to a university or what have you to become a brickie, or to become a good carpenter, or to become a good plasterer. But at least there ought to be the avenues for people to go and acquire those skills. So I'm quite sure that there are some people who could be broad-minded enough to decide that he has a degree in history or a degree in economics or what have you. But what he actually wants to do is to be somebody who is good at laying marbles or what have you. Because it will always show. My mom once told me that if you went into a chop bar and there were all these people eating there, you look at the way they eat, and something tells you that that one went to school, that one didn't.
Interesting point there.
Yeah.
And that's got to do also with training. But one concern about training is that we need the appropriate materials and inputs to meet what the technological changes across the world is. So when it comes to STEM training, even in Ghana, there's a concern about the facilities that we have in place. I'll come to you, Ambassador, on that, but let me also take your thoughts on that, Honorable Gifty Chuma-Mpofu. What measures are we going to see from the Ministry of Education? We are already learning of the STEM institutes that you are about to construct, but what more do we know about that in terms of the provisions you're making for infrastructure and then technology, which is the second leg of that conversation?
Thank you very much. Echi, you're welcome.
Thank you, madam.
It's good to meet people like you on programs like this. And as we speak out, we also learn a lot from you, and then we see where the loopholes are, and then you mend our ways. Thank you very much. To the issue, for improvement of facilities at our TVET centers and our STEM centers, so much has been done. It is not only the 34 TVET centers or the MVP that has been improved and upgraded. You also have 10 technical universities, their workshops modernized and upgraded, furnished with state-of-the-art TVET equipment, which are also industrial equipment. When we come to the second cycle, that is the technical schools which were previously under the Ghana Education Service. Let me say this, now we have per the Education Regulators Act and the Pre-Tertiary Act, Act 1049, we now have TVET Service, Ghana TVET Service, headed by its own Director General, that is Mausi, and Deputy Director General, Mr. David Pratt. So they are taking charge of all the technical vocational second cycle institutes in the country. So the 49, which hitherto were under the Ghana Education Service, we have 13 of them also having brand new workshops with modern and industrial equipment, state-of-the-art TVET equipment. And then there are other 4 that under Government of Austria, we have also refurbished them and furnished them with state-of-the-art TVET equipment. All that we're trying to do is, we want to place TVET in Ghana at the pedestal of the world, and we've also registered as being the 81st member of World Skills International. So whatever we do in TVET, we're not benchmarking with Ghana or even Africa. We're benchmarking with the world. So all equipment that we bring into these TVET institutions, being the second cycle or the tertiary, we're benchmarking with the world. You appreciate that TVET is very expensive. That is why for some decades, we were not investing much in TVET. Also because most of our industries almost collapsed. So our TVET graduates were not getting the industries for the internship, and also we're not getting the industries to work with them after they have graduated from the various institutes. As of now, the CTVET, that is the Commission for TVET, have a close link with the industry by establishing what we call the sector skill bodies. These sector skill bodies, we are working very closely together to enable them open their factories and their workshops to our students for internship, that is for more hands-on. And again, government is also providing for practicals, even though it is not enough. But by approved technology, we are meeting the needs of practical or hands-on for our students. All the equipment that we have, together with the computers that we have furnished our schools with, these systems have simulations, 3D simulations, where all practicals could be done on the internet or on the computer being projected on the screen, and the 3D dimension projection or video is such that it looks as if your teacher is there teaching you what to do, and you are right in there in the picture. With this appropriate technology with all the simulations, it enables students to improve on their practicals without using too much consumables. That is, we're using this to cut down the expenditure so far as practical learning is concerned. Again, H mentioned the fact that somebody could learn any skill or could go to school and decide to go back to learn a particular skill. That is where we get into. So now we're doing CBT curriculum, where you can decide that I want to learn only how to lay bricks or only how to lay tile. And that wouldn't take you 3 years or 4 years. Some courses will be 6 years, some will be 3 years, some will be 1 year. It could be proficiency 1, it could be proficiency 2, it could be certificate 1, depending on your background. And this curricula also, we take into consideration prior learning. Assuming you want to go and learn baking, and your mother used to bake bread. At least in that aspect, there's so much you know. So we develop the curricula.
Right. So what you're trying to do.
You know already, yes.
Right. So what you're trying to do is to make that hands-on, so that there's practicality, right?
Exactly.
Right. But for you, Doc, I mean, you've been in the first world, and I'm using that word advisedly. There's this concern about the digital divide, where you are and what you see now in Ghana. Are we able to catch up to that stage where the developed world is able to train many of its students in advanced technology? How do we learn from some of these examples elsewhere and try and incorporate that into our system that we have here?
Well, there's always going to be the question of funding.
Right.
And in our circumstances, it isn't everything that we can handle at the same time. But then I also subscribe to the view that governments are not expected to solve our problems, but governments, good governments, are expected to subsidize the solution of problems. So in all this, we might not be able to, start with some kind of excessively superior workshop situation or what have you. Okay. But at least a certain kind of paced development is always going to be very helpful. And in fact, I can tell you one image that I observed when the Russians left Afghanistan before the Americans went in. Right. There was this old gentleman with 2 grand, children, boys, sitting by the roadside, making TV antennas from kerosene tins. Wow. Now that, for me, is what advancement is about. And then I have also seen images of 3 youngsters in this country. One of them had been generating electricity from cassava. Whoa. The other one had managed to use electricity basically as a locking system for cupboards and things like that. And then recently, I think I saw one of them who had manufactured some kind of a mobile gadget that could be, developed, what have you. In my view, those, for instance, are kids that you go and grab, talk to them, look at their backgrounds and all that, and somehow find some space for them and support them. Then I'm quite sure their support system is not going to be anything that will knock off a building. Right. And tell them, okay, maybe for this period, we will give you so much so that you don't starve. Do what you want to do. You challenge people.
You feel that will promote creativity.
Exactly,
right.
Because what is necessary is for us to be able to devise things which are relevant to our system. Because some of the things that we have been made accustomed to, and we feel we cannot do without, most probably we don't even need them at all. Right. But we have to find a way of making sure that our circumstances are recognized in whatever it is that we do. At the moment that, for instance, car makers are going for electric cars and that kind of thing, you look at our electricity situation, and this is across the sub-Saharan region, and you find out that the development of these cars are such that it takes into consideration the supply of electricity at some point, it takes into consideration the quality of the roads and all that. And I suspect that the cars we use now, the internal combustion engine is going to be retired at some point. If they do, and we are all into this electronic vehicles inside, I can imagine driving my own car to my hometown, and at some point the dashboard telling me that, well, I wasn't designed for this kind of road, so I'm not going any further.
But how do we connect all of this to job creation? Because the youth are very much concerned about that. And anytime the option of TVET comes up, the concern is that there's some potential of creating more job avenues for our youth. Is that practical, or perhaps is it far-fetched to be?
Well, it could be practical, because in fact, my thrust in all this is that I'm trying to get the Ghanaian employer community to support the development of applied STEM. Because in the final analysis, they are the ones who will provide the jobs. They are the ones who would want to improve on their performance, because they have staff with the quality and the attitude to help produce more and better. So I'm more into a certain kind of relationship with business and industry to be able to absorb the kinds of people that we need as the workforce of, for Ghana's future. And if I did this launch a day ago at Kempinski, and I got a lot of these industrialists in there to try and get them to appreciate the fact that they also owe the country and themselves in particular to develop the kinds of expertise that will be relevant to their kind of production.
But we unfortunately would have to hold on with this conversation. I'm sure that we'll create some time for it and have this conversation again. But Honorable Gifty Chumampufu, just briefly, about 30 seconds, your words on the expectation that we should be on the lookout for from the ministry. Briefly, Madam. It appears that we've lost Honourable, but yeah, Your Excellency, your final words to our viewers as we wrap up this conversation.
Well, for me, because of what I'm trying to promote, I would want Ghanaian business and industry to take this whole idea of STEM and applied STEM seriously, because we are looking at the future of the country, raising the temperature of the economy, and making sure that at least the people that we have, because we have a teeny set of young people with a voracious appetite for virtually anything, and with the energy to try anything, and we ought to provide the opportunities for them so to do.
Right, Ambassador, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. We'll definitely have this conversation again, but we have breaking news for you right now here on the JoyNews channel. We understand that the President has assented to the controversial subject of the E-levy. The bill is now law, so officially that will mean that you'd have to raise up for more. 1.75% is the rate. We'll be getting some details for you. Kweku Asante is with the JoyNews team, has details of this for us. Kweku, give us some updates on this. So Kweku will be joining us shortly on this. We have pictures on your screen right now as you have it on the JoyNews channel. We're bringing that to you right now. The President there signing the E-levy bill into law. So what it practically means is that you now have to make payments, and that would definitely mean more cost for you. Kweku will be joining us to give us some updates on that, and then we'll definitely fill you in on what's happening right now as far as the bill is concerned. Kweku is here, fortunately, to give us some updates. Kuku, so what do we know? What more do we know about what's happening today with regard to the bill?
So we know that when the bill was passed by Parliament, Parliament wanted to satisfy itself that all the amendments that had been done to the bill would be inculcated into the new bill before it will be sent to the President. And because of the State of the Nation address yesterday, that was not done. But so today, all these changes have been made into the bill, and we understand that the President got that on his table, and as soon as he did, he signed it into law. We know that today government has a big cabinet meeting, and so I'm sure this will feature prominently. And so the President, Akufo-Addo, just like you said, the breaking news just coming in, the President has assented to the E-levy bill that was passed to Parliament. So it's now law. That bill is currently in force, and so it's expected to take effect. We know that the Finance Ministry says the bill is supposed to take effect from May.
Right.
All right. And the telcos themselves say they have some challenges in terms of its practicality.
Yeah,
so,
and the whole thing affecting their system. Initially, I was indicating that there was 1.75, but I need to state right now that some amendments were made
and so,
on the floor of the House. So that will now mean 1.5
E-levy.
percent rate. That's what it will mean now.
That is the key amendment that was done to the bill. And the Finance Minister himself was the one who moved the motion in Parliament for that to take effect. It was carried. Of course, the minority had then walked out of the House, and so their views were not taken into consideration at that level. But Parliament as a whole approved that. And so those were the key amendments that were done. And so what we know is, as soon as this hit the table of the President, and we know government has said that it is a very, very important revenue measure, and so they signed it right into law. And so the telcos chamber, like I was saying, Ken Ashigbo was on PM Express yesterday, and he had some concerns about the 1 month frame. Today is 31st. If you're expecting that the E-levy bill will take effect 1st May or the first week in May, that means you have around 1 month to do all the tinkering with the systems to be able to ensure that this goes on smoothly.
Koko, the GRA is telling us that at least they've set up their system. That would definitely mean that once the bill is mature, whatever it is, whatever constitutional processes we need to fulfill, once that is done, they'll move into action.
Right, and we know that the Ghana Revenue Authority had primed its systems up, waiting for the approval. Way back in January, February, they had started talking to the banks and other stakeholders to ensure that they start preparing themselves. And so on the angle of the GRA, I know that they've done some preparatory work to be able to do this. But the GRA will have to plug in with the telcos, because if it's the bigger part of this electronic levy bill has to do with mobile money. And so MTN, Vodafone, and all these other companies would have to prime their systems up, because there are a few other exemptions. For instance, if you transact below 100 cedis, it means you are not going to be taxed. The system has to be set to that effect. If you are transferring money from your bank account owned by you to your own account, we are told there's an exemption. If you are paying on Ghana.gov, you are paying taxes and other government revenue, you are not going to pay. And so the systems, the telcos need to put that in place. And they are saying that 1 month may be quite an ambitious plan. But of course, government would have to do all the thinking. But the other angle to this is that we know that the minority is in court.
I was just about bringing that up. So because that would be another potential challenge to the implementation of this law.
Because if Parliament is to hold, or the Supreme Court is to hold that the bill was approved illegally, it will mean that it won't take effect if that is done within the time frame that we are considering. But yesterday, Mahama Yariga, the Boko Central MP, is one of the 3 named plaintiffs in the minority suit challenging the case in the Supreme Court. He was saying that he would have wished that the President would have held on with signing the bill into law. But obviously the President did not listen to that specific counsel. He has signed it into law. The minority are expected to go through the case in the Supreme Court, prove their case, and if the court finds reason in the arguments, will actually, as it were, declare the approval of the bill as null and void. And so all that will be done, but just that the President did not listen to their counsel to hold on to that.
Right, and if you're with us on the JoyNews channel, we need to tell you this. The President has signed the E-levy bill into law. So it's now official. 1.5% is the charge rate. And just gone by, you saw pictures of the President actually signing that piece of document. That would mean that you have to brace up. You would be paying more. We're not sure yet what the telcos will decide to do, as well or not they'll be taking a haircut quickly. Right. That's one thing that should be on the lookout for.
That became a big issue because the telcos themselves said they were going to reduce their charges. We know that currently there's a 1%, 2% flat rate when you transact to a certain point. Are they going to reduce it? They said they were going to reduce 0.25. We don't know if they've had any conclusion with the finance ministry in terms of the negotiation. And so I'm sure this 1 month period will be the place for that kind of clarity. And today on our various news bulletins from Prime and Newsnight, we're trying to get some clarification from the finance ministry and the GRA in terms of some of these key issues. Right. Because the Momo agents have been speaking to us, and I've been speaking to the PRO of the Momo agents himself. He says that since Tuesday that the E-levy bill was passed, there's been a tremendous amount of reduction in the way people come around. People have actually been withdrawing all their money.
And in fact, the data actually suggests that this started way back, about 3 months. So when the initial announcement was made.
And now that Parliament has passed, 70% of transactions, according to the Momo Agents Association, people who go to the various agents, they just go to withdraw their money because they don't want to be caught.
So the transaction that's happening now is the withdrawal. But if you look at it technically, that would mean that government's revenue measure could be affected.
Right, and also
because if you look at the terms of the bill, and now which is now technically law, withdrawals are not necessarily
So if you are
charged,
and that raises the question of education. A lot of people are going to withdraw, say, 70 cedis. That's all in their account. They don't know that if you are not transacting above 100 cedis, you are even exempted. So that education needs to go down. And some of the concerns you raised, and I know the Pulse did some data from previous days about how transactions are falling since the bill was introduced in Parliament and when the finance minister spoke about it in the 2022 budget. We know that in other places, Uganda and other places, when they introduced this bill, there was some tremendous amount of cuts in terms of the transaction value. A government expects $1.15 billion. That's around 7 billion Ghana cedis. Some have said, people like Bryce Simmons have said, that is overly ambitious, that government may not get that. And so they have to do some conservative figures. And so people are panicking and withdrawing all of a sudden. That will mean that government may not be able to get its target, and that will have some effects on government's revenue projection for the year ending 2022.
The telcos themselves have been speaking on this. They are assuring that funds are safe, but then it doesn't look like many of our out there are really responding to that. And in fact, you can see the data there indicating how fast of a declining rate so
if you look at the data,
the transactions on the mobile money platform is. So the data here, we have it quickly. Let's quickly run through it.
Right,
so you see the trajectory from November, December,
January. You look at the data, and we had 18.3 million active mobile money accounts. It dropped to about 17.3 million in July 2021. Then it had been on the ascendancy through August to September to October, and now it's been falling. And so the peak period was around September 2021.
And the concern is that that period was a COVID period, right?
COVID period. So people were doing a lot of mobile money transactions
as well.
So 19.4 million accounts.
Necessarily with fiscal cash. And so that may have accounted for the sharp rise. But then, right from November to December 2020.
2021, November, when the finance minister you see a downward spiral from 18 million subscribers to our 17.4 million in January. All right. And we know that MTN themselves have spoken about how transactions on the mobile money, MTN mobile money, has gone down considerably. Look at the total value of transactions between June and January 2022. You look at it from 86.1 billion Ghana cedis the government were getting before the budget was announced in November. Look, that it's gone down to 76.2 billion Ghana cedis. And so there's been some considerable dive, the nose dive in that. And I'm not sure government is looking at this.
But many aspects have been sharing differing opinions on this. The belief is that even if you shift out of the mobile money platforms, you still have cash in your hands. You deal with the banks anyway. That's a more efficient system where government could take its revenue. So is there really an alternative for those who are out there? I mean, someone who's considering relying on cash right now, Is that a viable option?
There really is. There really is, because if you look at the E-levy, it's affecting transactions online. If you have a bank account and you go to the bank account to do a withdrawal, that is not affected by the E-levy.
Right.
So it means if I have, say, 5,000 cedis in my account and I go to withdraw that amount, put that on me and doing transactions, it means I pay the ordinary taxes, the VAT, and all these other taxes that I have to pay.
Right.
But I don't have to pay E-levy. And so people have been looking at the data and say that if you wanted to send your grandmother in where do you come from?
Yeah, right.
So you want to send 5,000 cedis and you're paying 1.5% on 5,000 cedis and the charges. Some people have been doing calculation that says that taking a car from Accra station to the Volta region and back will cost you less. But of course, government has made the case that they need this revenue to be able to undertake all the developmental projects that they've talked about. And some have argued that you need to give government that benefit of the doubt. Let government do whatever it intends to do with the money. And then after some time, you can critique it.
Cool. I'm grateful. I mean, that's how scary it is. Regardless of whether or not you've paid on an earlier transaction, you will still have to pay anyway. The number of times you do the transactions is the number of times you'll be paying. Once you exceed that threshold of 100 Ghana cedi a day, and then the cumulative amount is 3,000
cedis. That is 100 cedis every day for
right. So that's it for you. But we are giving you updates on that. The president passing the E-levy bill now into law. Parker Wilson is joining us live from Parliament now to give us some updates. Parker, you're on phone, so tell us what's been the reaction in Parliament ever since this announcement. Parker, I'm asking about the reactions we are already getting from Parliament on this.
So, yesterday there was a caution from the minority to the president, hating slowly in attempting to the bill, and the argument has been that assuming they are successful with the the approval of the levy by one-third majority out, what then happens? The deductions that have already taken place, are they going to refund the money to the individuals who have already been deducted or not? So to some of them, they are a bit surprised hearing the news that the president has sent them to the bill. I have with me the ranking on the Defense Energy Committee, James Agaga. Briefly for me, sir, we are just hearing breaking news that the president has assented to the E-levy bill. Now it's become a law, now it's enforced. What's your initial reaction to this, sir?
Father, you have been reporting from this house for quite some time. This is not the first time this house has enacted the bill into law. Now, you will notice that in respect of this particular E-levy bill, which we are now being told President has given his access so that it has become law, right? Is that the case with which the presidency has always given access to bills?
Well, the government needs money to run the economy. You admit that the economy is on wobbling legs.
Baka, but this is a president who is a lawyer and knows very well that when judicial process has been set in motion, a writ was filed, it has been served. You must not do anything to compromise or prejudice the work of the courts. The president knows this too well.
Are you alleging that what he has done may influence the judges in their decision?
Absolutely. It is a bad, because of serious allegation. Yes, and I'm saying this with a fear of contradiction. That it is a bad practice for the president who knows that the courts must be allowed to do, their work without any forms of interference, would do such a thing. He knows that following the alleged practice, and we say alleged because we know what happened. There was a walkout, and our case is dependent upon the Supreme Court's own decision in the Justice Abdullahi case, that without one half of all members present and voting, the House cannot take a decision. We withdrew from the House, and you know the numbers of the majority side was not more than 136, and so they could not have taken a decision. So if the matter has been brought before the court, we all agree that the Supreme Court is the only body mandated to interpret the Constitution. Why is the president in this kind of heated case? to give access to a bill, a law, the passage of which has been seriously contested. It's being contested before the Supreme Court. I think we want to overreach the Supreme Court, and that would be very unfortunate. The president must allow the separate arms of government, the judiciary, to do its work as the body mandated to exercise some level of oversight over the legislature and even the executive. What he has done now has compounded matters. The passage of the bill will contend is unconstitutional. Maybe we should bring another fresh action to this time around declare his assent to the bill as another act of illegality.
How would you consider that?
But I think what is even before the court is enough to undo what the president has sought to do.
Right. So thank you very much. So, Pleasant, I mean, briefly from the minority, it's they're describing the move by the president, unfortunately, because in their view, they think that what that the president has done could one way or the other influence the decision of the Supreme Court.
From Parliament, giving us the latest on this. We are taking a break now. Don't forget that we'll give you some updates in our subsequent bulletins. Stay with us.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the Joy News. Pulse with me, Oreku Ampofo. Well, we know that Ghana are in the World Cup, and time for excitement is over. It's now more of anxiety in terms of how Ghanaians are feeling, and that's because just about 24 hours from now, Ghana would be finding out which group they would be in the World Cup, which would go a long way to tell how the Black Stars definitely would perform. And joining me in studio to look at the possibilities for the Black Stars in terms of the groups that they could end up in is Joy Sports' Joel Bote. And it's a pleasure to have you, Joel. Before I come to you, let's quickly take a look at the port arrangement in terms of how the teams have been put in and arranged ahead of the World Cup. And you can see in pot 1, we have the host nation, Qatar, Belgium, Brazil, who are now ranked number 1 in the world, France, Argentina, England, Spain, and Portugal. Pot 2 is Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, Mexico, USA, Switzerland, Croatia, Uruguay. Pot 3, Senegal, Iran, Japan, Morocco, Serbia, Poland, South Korea, Tunisia. And then we have Saudi Arabia, Ecuador, the one that everyone is interested in, Ghana. Pot 4, Cameroon, fellow Africans, Canada, who make an appearance after 36 years. And there are 3 more slots yet to be battled for. Ukraine, of course, due to the invasion from Russia, have not played football. And so 3 more slots to complete the 32 teams for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. But let's talk about Ghana and focus on the Black Stars, because being in pot 4 means that they could face some really, really big teams. And before we get into that, let's get an explanation from Joel. How come there are 4 pots and what went into the arrangement for these pots by FIFA?
So in terms of the arrangement of the pots, it started first from the host nation, which is Qatar. Now for each pot, you notice that there are about 8 slots for each for their pots. So 8 slots per pot. Now with Qatar in the first pot, it means that there are 7 more slots for the first pot, and that is determined by the next 7 best teams in the world in terms of FIFA rankings. And with that would determine the positions of the other pots as well. If you look at pot 4, I mean this arrangement follows all the way to pot 3, and pot 4 is for the lowest ranked teams that have qualified for the World Cup in terms of FIFA rankings. Now with the 5 teams that have qualified, there's a remaining 3 slots, which you mentioned. That is because of the inter-confederation ties and playoffs that would have to be played, as well as due to the standings with the UEFA Part A, which Ukraine finds themselves in and would need to play that game in Cardiff. Now, that is what explains the reasoning behind those pots arrangement.
And just a little bit of more explanation, how would the groups be picked out, just for the sake of viewers out there who may not necessarily get a concept? How are groups picked out for the World Cup?
So it's picked based on from pot 1 to pot 4, and per the rules of FIFA, the arrangement is that for UEFA, they can have more than at least one team from the UEFA Confederation, but they're not more than 2 per group. So that means we would see teams like Belgium, France that could qualify, put in one group, but that would be the end per group. So that's one. Another thing is the other confederations can't have more than one team from the same confederation in a group. So that eliminates some of the teams that have qualified. That, for example, we could have maybe a Tunisia and Senegal, but that can't happen because they are from the same confederation, irrespective of the fact that they are in the same pot. So these are some of the things that would eliminate some of the things to find out how we can get the arrangement for each group.
And before we go, let's just come back to the Ghanaian interest, and if we could just get the graphic of the pots on the screen, so we can just do a little bit of a simulation here in the JoyNews studio in terms of the possibilities for the Black Stars. And so what essentially means is that Ghana cannot face any team in pot 4 and any other African team in pot 1, 2, or 3. Yeah. Right, according to your explanation. Yeah. And so essentially Ghana could end up facing any team in pot 1.
Yeah, they could face a potential Argentina, a potential Belgium. They could also face Qatar. They could face Portugal, even though they are in the same pot. But per FIFA regulations, they are 2. They can't take more than 1. But then, they can take from the other pot. So they can take 1 from pot A, pot 1. That's Belgium, and could also take Netherlands from pot 2. And that would be the end for UEFA. They could also face Iran and face South Korea, which is from the Asian Confederation. That's how it works. Things could go in that favor for them. It all depends on how the draw is done and the simulation, per what the simulation said, how things are picked per each pot for Ghana.
Yeah, but I just wanted to find out for Ghana itself, what's the best possible group that you see from here, and what's the worst possible group that you see?
The best possible group for Ghana would be to get a Qatar, and also get Netherlands.
Netherlands?
Yeah, I think Netherlands
Why not US or Mexico, Croatia, Denmark?
I actually fear the Swiss and the Uruguayans because Uruguay, we've had a few issues with them.
It will be interesting to get them again.
To get them again, yeah. That's one of the things I fear. We could also get a Serbia, which could also favor us because if you look at the games we've played against Serbia, it's been in our favor. This is just what I feel could be the best possible group.
And what could be the worst, quite quickly?
The worst, I don't want to see a Brazil. I don't want to see a Germany. I also don't want to see a Japan, because I believe you're coming into this World Cup with a very strong team.
Thank you very much, Joel, and it would be very interesting. Remember, just 2 teams would be qualifying from their group. So if you already draw a Brazil, Germany in your group, things would not be looking too smooth for you. But we have Gary Al Smith in Qatar, and he would be bringing us all the information, of course, behind the scenes, before the draw, during and after the draw. And we have a special show for you tomorrow at 3:40 p.m. and we'll be doing all the discussions and the build-up, and of course, streaming live the Qatar FIFA World Cup draw here on the JoyNews channel. My name is Oreku Ampofu. You can get some more sports stories on my Joy Online /sports or on our Twitter pages and Instagram at JoySportsGA.
And that's how we wrap up today's edition of The Pulse. My name is Blair Sogan. Log on to myjoyonline.com for more updates.